Prince Harry has said he is devastated about losing his latest legal challenge over the security he receives when he's in the UK.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle just vanished from their Monteceto home, and there is nothing good about it. According to media reports, the British royals even listed their Riven Rock mansion for sale, leaving royal observers speechless. How did a dream home turn into a trap for the British royal? And where would they head next? Join us as we break down the shocking details behind Prince Harry's latest move. Prince Harry and Meghan leave Monteceto. In recent weeks, people in Monteceto noticed something strange, though no one has said it out loud yet. It's about the Riven Rock estate, a place Harry and Meghan call home. At first, strange faces appeared around the estate. Then, there was less movement and a silence that no one could explain. For now, no one has explained or announced anything. But when a place like this starts to empty out, it usually means something has already gone wrong, and the real reason is only just beginning to surface. According to insiders, it all started early one morning. Longtime staff members were called aside one by one. These were not new hires or temporary workers. These were people who had keys, routines, and who had been familiar with the estate for years. They were told their contracts would not continue past February. There was no send-off, no handover period, no promise of severance, just a short notice and an understanding that their services were no longer needed. Keep watching, because this is just the beginning of the mysteries. Remember that houses do not usually empty themselves unless something deeper is happening behind the walls. As the days passed, people nearby began to notice strange movement. You know, black SUVs and strange cars coming in and out at odd hours. These were not the regular security vehicles locals had grown used to seeing over the years. According to neighbors, none of the cars stay long. They arrived, stayed briefly, then disappeared. To neighbors, it felt less like guests arriving and more like systems being packed up. Monteceto is a place where patterns matter. When those patterns break, people must talk. When reports began streaming into the media, security experts paid closer attention. What they saw did not look like an ordinary house reshuffle. It looked like something being taken apart piece by piece. When restructuring happens, replacements arrive before exits are final. Here, exits came first. The impression was not of a home adjusting to a new phase, but of one preparing for an ending. But something else was happening behind the gates. According to media reports, the Monteceto house was a dream escape. 9 bedrooms, sprawling grounds, ocean air drifting up the hill. On paper, it sounded like a castle of luxury. But dreams cost money, and this one came with a price that never stopped climbing. Property taxes alone ran into the hundreds of thousands every year. Another issue was water. Monteceto is a drought-prone zone. Although security was not optional, the house was not paying anything back, it was only taking, and the cost of residing in such a place was really high. As if that weren't enough, leaked reports suggest that the insurance company responsible for the house sent a notice of withdrawal. The reason was that wildlife experts advised that the house was in an outbreak zone. California insurers had been pulling back from high-risk zones for years, and Monteceto sits squarely in one. As fires grew more intense and more frequent, insurers were drawing stricter lines. This property crossed one of them. Insurance problems are stressful for any homeowner, but this situation was even more complex. For instance, active insurance was not optional. Under the terms of the mortgage attached to the estate, it was a condition. The moment coverage lapsed, the loan entered technical default. No missed payment was required. No grace period applied. Although this kind of clause is common in high-value California real estate, lenders protect themselves aggressively, especially when wildfire risk is high. Without insurance, the property became a liability they could not afford to leave exposed. Foreclosure could begin even if every payment had been made on time. Faced with that reality, Prince Harry reached for the phone. It was no longer about press or reputation. It was about money, documents, and deadlines. Up until that point, the Monteceto story had mostly appeared in magazines and on social media. According to Prince Harry's supporters, the castle was a symbol of independence and fresh beginnings, away from the royal family and its never-ending drama. But once insurance fell through and loan terms took control, Harry's story changed. The house that once represented freedom had to go. Bills did not care about intentions. He had to restore the estate coverage or inject fresh money to calm the lenders. Without that, the entire structure stood on borrowed time. But that wasn't all. The mortgage itself was large, but it was only part of the burden. Orchard costs ran year-round. Maintenance never stopped. Utilities for a property of that size added up quickly. Even before the insurance crisis, the annual outflow was already big. What had once been sold as Harry's sanctuary had turned into his biggest pressure point. Every new day made the situation worse. Staff were already gone, gardeners had been sacked, yet it wasn't enough to save the estate. It only bought him some time before the collapse. For outsiders, the change was subtle but unmistakable. The house felt like a ghost villa. Lights that once came on every evening stayed dark. Monteceto homes were always full of life. This one did not. But for those who followed Prince Harry's story, his Monteceto dream did not disappear overnight. It faded as reality replaced it. A private retreat stopped being private the moment he could not raise enough money to sustain the life he wanted in America. Remember, he was cut away from some royal sponsorship. More on that later. By the time he decided to leave, it no longer felt like home. It was more of a problem waiting to be solved. But this was only the beginning. What happened will surprise you. Stay with us. Prince Harry seeks William's help. Left with no other options, Harry picked up the phone one morning in Montecito and called William in London. Media reports indicate that the call was not scheduled, and there were no aides, assistants, or anyone taking notes. It was just the two brothers on a video call talking about something that had gotten out of hand. Harry needed help. The Monteceto estate, the house he and Meghan had bought as their new life, was in serious trouble. He hoped that William could provide funds from the Duchy of Cornwall to cover the mortgage, insurance, security, and other expenses until he could figure out another plan. William refused. He would not give any money. This was not because he wanted to punish Harry or because he did not care. It was because the duchy's money could not be used for personal debts. Every dollar in the duchy has strict rules about how it can be spent. Lending to Harry's private estate would have broken those rules, and it would have put William in a position where he could face legal and parliamentary issues. Another issue William had was the amount involved. Harry's total debts and obligations were over $36 million. The mortgage on the Monteceto house alone was $9,500,000. Security costs for full-time guards were at least $300,000 per year. Property taxes on the estate were around $245,000 per year. Altogether, just keeping the estate running costs nearly $2 million each year, and that did not include the mortgage or any renovations. William took every number seriously. He used the duchy's internal financial system to review every line item, including contracts, bills, projected expenses, and past payments. He wanted a full picture before making a decision. What he found was alarming. The Monteceto estate, which Harry had bought in June 2020 for $14,650,000, had already absorbed tens of millions in upgrades, renovations, furniture, landscaping, gardens, and decorative improvements added millions more. But these expenses added almost nothing to the house's value if it had to be sold quickly. The property had become a cash drain, not an asset that could support itself or generate money. The insurance problem made everything worse. As we said earlier, the house was in a high wildfire risk area. California insurance companies had been pulling back from homes in these zones for years, and the Monteceto property was right in the middle of the risk. Sources privy to the conversations revealed that Harry insisted William must intervene. He wanted a loan or some way to cover the immediate shortfall until he could get things back on track. William explained why that could not happen. The duchy's money is held in trust for the future of the crown, not for private spending. Lending money to Harry would have violated the legal, ethical, and parliamentary obligations. If William made an exception, It would create a precedent that the duchy would have to follow every time a royal family member got into financial trouble. That could have led to years of problems, legal challenges, and public outcry in Britain. But that wasn't all, though. William went further. He examined the estate itself. He looked at how much money could realistically come back if the property were sold. The house had 9 bedrooms and 16 bathrooms, a rose garden, a tea house, and 7 acres of landscaped grounds. Only a few very wealthy buyers could afford a house of this size and location. And even then, closing a deal could take months. The longer the estate stayed unsold, the lower the final price would likely be. William's decision was not personal. He framed it as a responsibility. He had to protect the Duchy of Cornwall. William's answer to Harry was final. The Monteceto estate could not stay. It had to be sold immediately. There was no room for negotiation. The house was no longer a symbol of independence or a fresh start. It had become a financial trap. Every month, it drained money from Harry's limited cash. Foreclosure could begin at any time due to the lapse in insurance. The only way to stop further loss was to put the property on the market and sell it as quickly as possible. By the end of the call, the message was clear. Harry had to face the reality of the situation. The estate could not stay in his name without further financial disaster. He had to sell it. The Monteceto dream, as he imagined it, was over. Every decision from this point forward would have to take into account the money, the contracts, and the risks involved. But here's the interesting part. Harry did not arrive at this point overnight, nor did he get here alone. The Monteceto crisis, the money strain, the failed insurance, and the urgent call to William were not accidents. They were the result of choices, promises, and support that once looked solid but quietly fell apart over time. To understand why everything collapsed at once, we need to look at the people and deals that once kept Harry afloat and how each one slowly drifted away. Stay with us, because what comes next explains how this situation spiraled out of control. What went wrong with Prince Harry's finance? The first clear sign of trouble for Harry and Meghan came when Tyler Perry's security team left the Monteceto estate. For years, Perry had provided full-time protection. His team included armed guards, intelligence specialists, and drivers with international clearance. They were trained to handle everything from paparazzi intrusions to potential threats anywhere in the United States or overseas. Security alone costs more than $600,000 every year. That included salaries for 22 personnel, vehicles with bulletproof modifications, and communication systems that allowed the team to coordinate globally. When they left, the estate suddenly had nothing close to that level of protection. Perry's exit was official. The team had packed their equipment and removed all specialized vehicles. New security arrangements were made, but these were much smaller. A local contractor took over and provided only a fraction of the protection Perry had provided. But that wasn't the only loss. Perry had also been a major financial backer for Harry and Meghan. Leaked figures suggest that over time, he had contributed more than $6 million to support Harry and Meghan's American ventures. This money had covered security, estate upgrades, legal fees, and some operational costs for Archewell Productions. When the insurance on the Monteceto estate fell through and the mortgage entered technical default, Harry turned to Perry for help, hoping for a temporary bridge. Sources revealed that Perry considered the request, but ultimately said no. The decision was not personal. He cited legal risks, tax compliance issues, and the fact that adding more money would not make the estate sustainable. Perry's contributions, although generous, had been limited to the point where continuing was no longer possible. With Perry's exit, pressure on Harry and Meghan increased. Almost immediately, Netflix also pulled the plug on them. In their contract with Archewell Productions, there was a clause requiring them to deliver content by specific deadlines and meet the Netflix standards. When the projects did not meet these requirements, Netflix formally activated a clawback. The clause required repayment of up to $20 million for non-performance. That sum included advances paid for programs that were never delivered or were delayed beyond the agreed deadlines. These were real dollars, money that had already been spent on salaries, production, and marketing for projects that ultimately failed to generate revenue. Netflix's action was a contractual safeguard, and there was no room for negotiation. Archewell Productions, the organization Harry and Meghan had created to produce content, was hit hard. With Perry gone and Netflix reclaiming $20 million, operational capacity was drastically reduced. Salaries for producers, writers, editors, and administrative staff had to be cut. Many positions were left unfilled. The skeleton crew that remained was able to manage only a minimal set of projects. Meanwhile, other media deals that had seemed promising were reassessed. Public records show that several contracts with television networks, streaming services, and brand endorsements were not profitable. Fees had been negotiated in the tens of thousands for each appearance or program, but production costs often exceeded the revenue. Projects that looked like high-profile opportunities turned out to be low-yield vanity projects. The money spent on travel, wardrobe, film crews, editing, and promotion had often surpassed what the deals actually brought in. For example, a program commissioned for $200,000 ended up costing closer to $300,000 when all expenses were factored in. These losses were repeated across multiple small contracts, further straining finances. All this is still nothing compared to what came next. It was Hollywood. Agents, managers, and studios that had previously sought to collaborate with Harry and Meghan began to step back quietly. Invitations to industry events slowed. Talent agencies that once considered the Sussex brand a potential draw reconsidered. Deals that were once pursued aggressively were now approached with caution. Contracts were reduced, fees were renegotiated, and opportunities that required upfront investment were withdrawn. The brand shifted from aspirational to high risk in the eyes of Hollywood insiders. Where once people expected prestige and influence to follow the couple, they now saw liabilities and unpredictable outcomes. The loss of financial and professional support created real consequences for day-to-day operations. Without Perry's $600,000 a year security, Harry and Meghan had to pay the local contractor $5,000 a month, roughly $60,000 annually. Netflix's $20 million clawback created immediate cash flow problems. Legal fees to contest or negotiate the clawback reached at least $300,000. Staffing for Archewell had to be reduced, leading to layoffs that saved only about $150,000 a year. Travel expenses that had previously been in the hundreds of thousands had to be canceled or postponed. These were tangible impacts affecting security, production, and personal safety. Every lost dollar had a consequence. For example, without international-grade security, the estate became more vulnerable. Insurance companies had already indicated that coverage would be difficult to maintain at the previous level. The combination of these factors created a domino effect. By the end of this period, the Sussex brand had fundamentally changed in Hollywood. It went from being a potential cultural and entertainment powerhouse to a risky partner. High-value contracts became difficult to secure. Opportunities that had been available freely now came with stricter conditions, higher scrutiny, and reduced payments. For Harry and Meghan, the implications were immediate. Projects had to be paused, budgets slashed, and the remaining staff focused only on essential operations. The human impact was clear. Staff members who had relied on steady wages were let go. Security teams that had trained for international operations were replaced by smaller local personnel. Project managers and producers had to stretch resources far beyond what was reasonable, often working double shifts to maintain operations. Harry and Meghan faced the stress of managing multiple crises simultaneously. By the time Harry realized the full scale of what he was dealing with, it was clear that external lifelines were gone. With all lifelines cut away, both at home and abroad, what will Harry do next? Stay with us to find the answer. Prince Harry's final decision. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had reached the point where they had to make a hard decision. After the insurance problems, mortgage pressures, and the loss of financial support from both family and Hollywood, the couple decided to put the house up for sale, but did so low-key. Insiders believe they contacted a few trusted real estate agents and private buyers to ensure the property would not be listed publicly. The asking price was reduced, just enough to attract serious buyers quickly. Every call and email had to be discreet because the media was watching. Meanwhile, moving vans began arriving at the estate under temporary logistics permits. Each van carried boxes, labeled with care, along with personal furniture and artwork that could be moved quickly. Prince Harry oversaw the packing of essential documents, computers, and irreplaceable items, while Meghan Markle focused on the children's belongings and school materials. Friends and staff, who remained for the short term, helped with sorting, labeling, and preparing shipments. Each day, a little more of the couple's life at Riven Rock disappeared. The gardens, the rose bushes, and the furnishings that had cost millions were slowly leaving the estate. Even small touches, like decorative lamps and rugs, were packed and sent to storage facilities in Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. Returning to the United Kingdom was no longer an option. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had lost access to Frogmore Cottage, their UK residence. Apart from that, they feared public hostility and pressure from the British media. The couple had to accept that the UK was off-limits as a permanent home. People close to the British royals advised them to seek short-term living arrangements. Reports later surfaced that they moved between rented homes, guest houses, and short-term leases, always careful to maintain privacy. Here is something you never knew about Prince Harry. People watching Prince Harry's life from the outside might think he left the United Kingdom by choice and could return at any time. But the reality is much more complicated. Prince Harry has said things in interviews and in his memoir that have made returning to Britain very difficult. These things keep the door closed, not just legally, but socially and emotionally. After he and Meghan Markle stepped back from royal duties in 2020, Prince Harry began speaking to the media more openly about his experiences in the royal family. In a wide-ranging interview with the BBC, Harry explained that he cannot see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. That is not just about money or logistics. That is about safety and how people perceive him. A major reason for this is the court battle he had over police protection in the UK. When Harry stepped back from his official royal duties, his taxpayer-funded security in Britain was reduced. He challenged that decision in court, hoping it could be restored so he could visit his family. In the aftermath of losing that legal case, he told the BBC that his father, King Charles, wouldn't speak to him because of the case. Because of this, Harry said he felt it was not safe to bring Meghan and their children back. As if that wasn't enough, in his memoir titled Spare, Prince Harry wrote about years of frustration with how the institution he belonged to handled his life. He talked about personal moments, including his feelings about his brother, Prince William, and his stepmother, Queen Camilla, and shared details not previously in the public record. Many readers saw this as hurtful or inappropriate for a member of the royal family to share. Some of those passages focused on sensitive family tensions, including allegations against King Charles and other members of the royal family. But that was just the beginning. In interviews promoting that memoir, Harry explained why he wrote so openly. He said his story had been told by others for decades, often with spin and distortion, and he wanted to present his side for the first time. He said that choosing silence was no longer an option when so much of his life had been taken out of context. But those public disclosures have consequences. Discussing internal disagreements, criticism of senior royals, and personal struggles on television, and in a book made private family matters public. For many in Britain, especially those who still respect the monarchy as an institution, that crossing of private boundaries felt like a breach of trust. People believe that family disputes should be handled privately, not broadcast to millions of readers and TV viewers. At the same time, Harry and Meghan's 2021 interview with Oprah Winfrey, in which they discussed their experiences within the royal family and issues with the press, added to the public rift. That interview drew huge global attention and created a lasting divide in how many in the UK view the couple. Many people saw the couple's openness as a break from tradition and a break from the way the royal family manages its own. The British press, especially tabloid newspapers, reacted strongly to it. Harry has gone on record saying that the UK media's treatment of him and of Meghan was hostile, and that certain outlets spread damaging stories. He linked that hostility in part to how the royal institution worked with certain newspapers to manage narratives. That claim has been controversial in Britain and has reinforced the idea among many that Harry is attacking the system that once protected him. All of these things mean he can't make a peaceful return to the UK. Even if Harry wanted to return with Meghan and their children, his security situation in the UK has not been resolved. He has made clear that without the protections he believes are necessary, it would be unsafe for his family to visit. Yet even with all of this, Harry has said he wants reconciliation. He has made it clear that he loves his father, his brother, and his family, and he regrets the distances that have grown between them. Those sentiments have come up repeatedly in interviews, including his desire to show his children their homeland and family history. But he also acknowledges that certain members of his family may never forgive him for some of his public actions. And for now, returning is simply impossible for Harry and Meghan. Thank you for staying with us. Do you think Prince Harry should return to the United Kingdom? Share your opinions with us in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the video below to watch it.